What's up everybody, and welcome back to another video. The long winter is finally over. Yes guys, followers of the channel will be aware that for the past few weeks, these past 3 weeks or so, I've been going through it. Not in Doctor Who land, don't you guys worry, but in real life world, and I am happy to finally come out to the world and say, we made it. The light at the end of the tunnel. We have made it through, folks. We are now in the sunshine. We are victorious! And so for our victory lap, I am going to be going crazy on the YouTube channel. Expect more uploads, expect more activity, expect more everything. Sometimes you guys have those days, those weeks, those months where, things are just not looking very good, bruv. Trust me, I have been there, but things do get better. So let's shoot for the skies, people. I'm going to be going all out because my goal for the end of season 2 is 30,000 subscribers. You already know. We are so close. But is it possible? Either way, I don't care. I'm just gonna be going all out. So definitely don't forget to tune in. I uploaded 2 videos yesterday, 1 today, 1 tomorrow, and 2 in the rest of the week. Basically, in short, I'm going rage mode. Speaking of the video yesterday, my theory on the well, I have a question, or a request, should I say. To the people in the audience who use Reddit, could you post that theory on there to see what other people are saying? I'm genuinely curious because I'm seriously proud of that video. And I kind of want to hear what people in the wider community think. Anyway, all of that aside, I've got videos coming out the wazoo, so lock in, people. And also remember, if you want to be included in the next community reaction video, all you have to do is leave a like, leave a comment, and leave all your thoughts in the comments down below. Whoopsie. Shall we get an update on the bingo front? I think that sounds good. What we thinking, folks? I think it's pretty good. Although by this point in season 1, I definitely had a lot more ticked off. If you guys are following along at home, I hope you're doing just as well. And to those of you on the Discord, those of you on the Patreon, and every single one of the channel members, the full reaction as well as the edited down reaction highlight for both this week's and last week's episode should be coming out very shortly. I apologize for the delay, but as I said, this past week has just been crazy, man. But anyway, all of that aside, what a flipping long intro. Doctor Who time. Do you know how long I've been waiting for this? Lucky day. This is the one I'm most looking forward to. The lovely Ruby Sunday has made her return, so you know what? I'm just gonna dive right in. And we're back. Hello people, take 2 because I just recorded about 1 or 2 minutes of my pre-ramble and the audio is messed up, so I paused and started again, but don't worry, I didn't actually talk about that much. So what did I think of the episode? I am a bit mixed, and I'll get into my thoughts because I've got a few thoughts and they're all quite complicated. This is going to be a rather dense review, and I'm going to be going through a few topics that are rather difficult and rather complicated and rather controversial, so I will ask just now before we get into the story and the review and my thoughts and all of that, I ask for a bit of patience. Now, of course, you guys know me, you've been watching the channel. I've been very positive about both this era and this series, and I've really enjoyed this series actually quite a bit. It's been one of my favorite series in modern times, and now that we're halfway through, it's really coming to form together. With this episode, we're getting real hints at what's to come in the finale. A lot of the character arcs are getting fully wrapped up, but I must say the real notable exclusion from this story, the real thing that I really think is holding it back, is the lack of Belinda Chandra. Belinda has been carrying the whole series on her back, in my opinion. Not to say that the stories haven't been good, but really it's her character that has actually been the highlight of the series for me, stand out by far, I think. It's the thing that's really carried me through the episodes, that emotive human aspect, which is weird because you'd think that this episode would have that more, being a Dr. Light story, but weirdly enough it doesn't, and that absence is really felt. I would say that's one of my main criticisms with the story, but there are a few more. What did I like though? Let's start with what I enjoyed, which is mainly the opening to the story. The first act, the first 15 or so minutes, the first 20 minutes is very strong, I feel like. The opening scene especially in 2007, it's New Year's, we introduced to Conrad, the Doctor vindicates, Belinda's there, 50p. It's all really quite well done, I think. I think it's a really good opening opening scene. And similarly, when we get to the podcast and we're going through the story, I really like the scene with the, the series 14-esque aspect of the Doctor and Ruby. It really felt like their relationship had just walked out of series 14 and was right in series 15. And it's strange that I'm already kind of nostalgic for that. And it was great. It was a great sequence. It was tense. It was funny. Chutogether does a funny voice, haha. And it was sweet. It was sweet seeing all of this come together. Ali from The Empty Child is back, which I don't know if anyone else noticed that but me. Probably only me. And then getting Ruby onto the podcast, all of this stuff. It was very nice and sweet. And then you have the date scene where Ruby describes what the shriek is. Very well done. Have all of the scenes with Ruby's family getting ready. She hasn't had a boyfriend in a long time. By the way, something which I find a bit weird, maybe it's not weird to literally anyone else, but all of the subtext and all of the subtext of last series as well was implying not that Ruby and the Doctor were boyfriend and girlfriend, but that they definitely did like each other in that way. This episode, Ruby Sunday says, hell nah to that. I get dunked on, disproven, slam dunked. I don't know, do I still cope? I don't think it was ever meant to be romantic, but at the same time, I don't buy that it was ever purely platonic. I mean, it wasn't really a boyfriend and girlfriend thing. I never viewed it as that. But come on, they definitely loved each other. The framing of everything, the framing of this episode as well. Anyway, they go to this village. I mean, looking back, the hints were there the whole time. Village, podcaster. He was from a Disney live action remake. Fuck yeah, this guy's evil. But that is actually where the whole episode begins to fall apart, in my opinion. That plot twist where Conrad is in think tank and all this blah 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 blah. The episode very quickly devolves from a very strong horror story to just an incomprehensible mess. The start has a lot of vibes of Love and Monsters, and then it just transforms into something. It turns into something else.
What happened to the original plot of the movie? What happened to the original plot of the movie?
It's a very comfortable way of looking at things. And the episode's social commentary is neither subtle nor intelligent or insightful or really saying anything that holds true, in my opinion. I don't think this episode is self-aware enough to realize what it's actually saying. Okay, let's get into the plot twist. So, the first half of this episode is a very nice kind of character study of Ruby Sunday, seeing her evolve after her travels with the Doctor, seeing how she integrates into her family, and seeing how she moves on relationship-wise. Ruby and Conrad's burgeoning relationship is very sweet. Without the context of the rest of the episode, yes, I do think it's rather sweet, at least how it's played initially. They like each other, they're cute, it's all very nice. And we even get some nice details about Ruby's PTSD. Poor Ruby. As always, Doctor Who goes out of its way to make Ruby the most sympathetic person of all time. First 73 yards, now this episode, they're going all out to make her as sympathetic as humanly possible. And they do. They make her very sympathetic. But then we get to the plot twist where Conrad pulls his shirt off and says, think tank, and then we're recording, we're live streaming, hashtag unit lies, all this bullshit. There's so many layers as to why it's bad, but I think before I go into the kind of ideological faults of the episode and misunderstandings, because I understand where they're coming from and I'm coming from the same place, but it's just hopelessly naive and they get really lost along the way. Mainly because the big problem with this episode is that for the second half, the editing is just garbage. Before this, I would say that the worst episode of Rusty Davies 2 was The Star Beast. That one is quite choppy in places, again, doesn't really realize what it's saying, and just has quite a few elements of it that aren't very good. Lucky Day, I would say, is quite considerably worse. I would say Lucky Day is the worst episode of this era so far, because this episode is just not very good. I'm sorry guys, I'm sorry. You guys know me, I'm the most positive on this era, but I'm also the most honest YouTuber of all time. I'm not just gonna blindly praise everything that I see. This episode just wasn't good, and not even from a writing standpoint or blah blah blah. A lot of the production choices and a lot of the editing, it wasn't up to the same standard of quality as either the Robot Revolution, Lux, or The Well. I'm sorry, it just isn't. Comparing this to 73 Yards, which is what I was hoping to do is just night and day. 73 Yards is my favorite episode of this era, and this is definitely the worst. Not by far the worst. There have been a couple stinkers. I think the Church on Ruby Road also wasn't that good. Joy to the World could have been better. Joy to the World, I'll probably give that like a 5 or 6 out of 10. That Joy to the World though, that is a story that is very good deep down. The problem is halfway through its whole identity is cracked because they came to Stephen Moffat and said, sorry, we don't have the money. It's very obvious that Joy to the World, going on a little tangent here, Joy to the World would have been good if they were able to do what they wanted to do, but the fact that they stay in one place, it leaves the episode feeling cracked. And while the sequence with Anita is the best part of the episode, it's not what the episode should be about, so the whole thing seems split and poorly underdeveloped and just kind of a nothing burger. The Church on Ruby Road is better than Joy to the World, and it's not necessarily a bad story, but at the same time, again, there are big holes where you can see that there was stuff that was meant to go there. The pacing is all over the place, and there are sequences that are just odd and don't really fit or work. Same with the Star Beast, except the Star Beast is definitely a case of just too little time, too much to do. Again, similarly to Joy to the World, the Star Beast could have been good. There's actually quite a lot of really good elements in it. It's just when you watch it, there are noticeable cracks that start to show. Lucky Day is the first episode of this era where I think kind of just on a base fundamental level, the plot twist and all of the thought process and all the things that evolve from it just kind of sucks. And then the episode also just so happens not to be good as well. I think it's cartoonish is how I'd describe it. Let's talk about the star again, because the star is definitely the best part of the episode, and there's a clear kind of way that the story could go, and then it just doesn't. I think we all kind of guessed that Conrad was evil from outside the show, but going into the show, it's really odd, especially that opening scene, which I think is quietly one of the most compelling and emotive parts of the story. This poor kid sees the TARDIS materialize in front of him, and that changes his world forever. That's a brilliant idea for a story, and a brilliant idea for a character, and an even better idea for a villain. There's a lot of great stuff there, and it's really emotive how he's just starstruck. He just sees it and he's like, I'm Conrad. And then he's like, doesn't speak at all because he's thinking. The Doctor gives him a 50p coin. He's vindicated. That's all part of his wider story. And then Conrad runs off. He's desperate to find his mum. And his mum just says, stop lying, and hits him, slaps him. And that's really formative. That shows how he could become the way he could. The problem is, in the context of the story, knowing what we know about him in the future, his mum is portrayed as entirely justified. And that is just so weird to me. Because Conrad, they say throughout the episode, don't trust him, he's a liar. So the implication is that his mum saying stop lying is to imply a pattern of behavior, that he's just a compulsive liar, and his mum was right to slap him. That's what that scene implies now because of the rest of the episode, and that's just so wrong. That's just wrong. The biggest problem with this episode by far is the refusal to give any sympathetic traits to Conrad whatsoever. They refuse to give him anything that's even slightly sympathetic. He is the most evilest evil straw man ever, and the characters take turns to lecture him about how evil he is.
His mother's not dead. Moira Clarke lives in the south of France. Nice villa paid for by Conrad. Meanwhile, he's raking it in. 80,000 paid subscribers, he owns 3 properties, and of course, he's a tax dodger.
We'll get to it at the very end, the sequence where the Doctor telepathically mind melds with Conrad in the TARDIS, which just so happens to be where Belinda was first name dropped to the Doctor. This explains in the Robot Revolution, where it's like, someone told me your name, so that's why they meet, even though it doesn't quite make sense. Either way, that sequence is just so uncharacteristic of the Doctor, because the Doctor has met so many assholes, utter irredeemable pieces of shit that are so far beyond Conrad, and he hasn't treated them as bad as that. He hasn't gone out of his way to just say, by the way, I just wanted to tell you, I just wanted to talk to you and say, fuck you. You fucking suck. You're fucking awful. Immediately I think back to the end of Flatline, which is one of the most... Well, Flatline is just one of the best episodes of the modern show. One of my favorites. My favorite Peter Capaldi episode. It is basically a masterpiece. The end of that episode, there's that guy who is just the biggest dick of all time, and the Doctor, he's there, he's barely been in the episode, similarly to this. He looks at him and he says, those weren't firewood, those weren't scraps, they were people, they were real people, and they died. And the man just looks at him and says, they were community worker scum, I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. And then he just walks away. And the Doctor's look there, that is kind of the way I think the Doctor views humanity. And that moment would be so undercut, and the severity of it would be so undercut if the Doctor handheld us through and said, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Audience, do you see how wrong he is? Yes, Doctor, we do see how wrong he is. We don't need every single character to bash it in. I don't really know why he did that. Is it because he was an asshole to Ruby? I suppose that's the meaning of it, but he says all this stuff and it's just weird. It just sounds weird for the Doctor to say, you know, you're a waste of space, you're gonna die alone, all of that. You know what it sounds like? It sounds like the monologue in Dalek. It sounds like that kill yourself.
What's the point of you? You're nothing!
My favourite scene in the whole show, except here, and it's just the Doctor just didn't like this guy. He just thinks he's a fucking asshole. And Conrad is just smugly smirking because he's the most mustache twirling villain of all fucking time. Okay. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about this story holistically from a top-down point of view. Kate Stewart is on fucking fraud watch. Russell T Davies, to you redeem this character for me. Don't do this. Don't do this to me. Regardless of whether or not you think that the Ruby Doctor thing is happening, which, you know, it's not happening, blah blah blah. They're definitely setting up Ibrahim and Kate Stewart, which is just so fucking weird on so many levels. I know Vicky DeLoe was like, oh, I really like it. That shit is weird as fuck, I'm not gonna lie. But the thing is, UNIT as a whole in this era has been pretty borderline inappropriate. I mean, I have definitely seen criticisms across the whole era criticizing UNIT for pretty fair things. I mean, they have been a little fascistic. Their introduction in the Starbeast is them pushing news crew into a van, into the back of a van. Again, the question I ask is, how secret is Doctor Who meant to be? The world building of this era is just in fucking tatters. I mean, it has been since By Generation, but now it's even weirder. Classic Doctor Who always ran under the interpretation that aliens were secret, UNIT was secret, the Doctor and his TARDIS were secret. Not many people knew this. Of course, in An Unearthly Child, the reason the Doctor doesn't let Ian and Barbara out and the whole story starts in the first place is because he doesn't want Ian and Barbara to tell the world about the TARDIS. Which makes sense to me. You want time to continue going on its course. You don't want super advanced alien technology to end up in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, blah blah blah. Now, since the 2000s, it just is a complete mess. He mentions the Sycorax. The Sycorax, who, may I remind you, in lore are from a removed universe where everyone forgot. So Amy forgot the Sycorax, she forgot the Daleks, the Cybermen, all of that stuff. Conrad gets a pass on the Cybermen because they showed up at St. Paul's Cathedral. But then he mentions the Yeti in the underground. What the fuck? What year did that take place in? How are you going to say there were no Yeti in the underground? Everyone left fucking London. So you're saying London was evacuated because there were Yeti that came out and killed fucking everyone, and you're saying that's a hoax? What about the fucking dinosaurs? The literal dinosaurs that we saw going around? Were they a hoax too? How can anyone believe this shit? So yeah, the world building is in fucking tatters. But beyond that, the actual logic of the story and the characters makes no sense. It doesn't have any internal logic whatsoever. There is lots in UNIT to criticize. They hire fucking children, okay? They hire literal 11-year-olds. They give 11-year-olds fucking guns because UNIT's response of, it's for your own good. I mean, I don't fucking believe that. That's what a fascist government would say. Don't worry, we're here in the super mega tower, which we don't need, by the way. They don't need the mega tower. And what are they doing? They're keeping monsters in the basement? Hello? UNIT has more than enough to criticize in this era, as does Kate Stewart. But instead, they strawman it that all of the people who have a problem with UNIT are fucking Andrew Tate types. That's fucking if. There's so many flaws with the episode, but I think it's this unself-awareness that leaves the whole thing feeling flat, deflated, boring, and uninteresting. There's no compelling drama in this episode whatsoever. Also, just a mini rant. How fucking useless of a militia is UNIT? Conrad storms the building, which can I just add, that's nonsense, by the way. He storms the building, armed, with a gun, and you think he's killed someone, but you don't just fucking shoot him? Like, not even in the leg? Conrad is like flailing his arms around, firing a gun. You are in full legal legal right to shoot him. Why did you not shoot him? He's trespassing with a gun and has killed someone. Shoot him. I don't buy this fucking, oh, he's live streaming. Also, how did he start fucking live streaming in the worst CGI shot of a lift ever, by the way? How did he start live streaming in the lift? And also, can't the fucking Blinks in all his majesty block a fucking live stream signal? I guess the live streams are just too strong nowadays. So instead, Kate Stewart viciously lets a monster out on the loose to hunt its prey as a form of, I don't know, catharsis? Instead of just fucking shooting him? What? Nothing in this episode makes sense. The data analyst, Jordan. Oh, okay, I'll admit, it was clever that they have him listening to the podcast at the very start, but they bring him along because Shirley Bingham is like, I need an analyst. He comes along, he's like, I don't know what's happening. And Shirley Bingham's like, give it here. Why the fuck did you bring him then? He lets Conrad in, and then he just gets shot, and that's his whole character. What a great character. Conrad goes from completely convincing into the most unapologetically evil bastard ever. It's an obvious riff on Andrew Tate. That's what it's obviously riffing. And the red pill movement. They seem to be under the illusion that all it takes to get to that level is to be rich, confident, and evil. Conrad's message of unit lies wouldn't interest fucking anyone. He would get maximum 30 views. Literally no one gives a fuck about that type of shit. I can't imagine that crowds of people would be crowding around Ruby Sunday's house to throw eggs at her because of fucking Conrad Clarke's prank. Are you kidding me? He'd be put on the One Show? No, he fucking wouldn't. As if anyone in the mainstream would take his side. He's an obvious crazed lunatic. He's just so obviously evil. He's got nothing redeeming about him. If you want to make him someone who can inspire people and rally people, then make him like Roger Ap Gwilliam. I don't understand this. Roger Ap Gwilliam is obviously a deeply evil person, but he doesn't just wear that on his sleeve. It's subtle, even though his plan is literally to nuke the fucking world. How can a guy whose plan is to nuke the world be more subtly evil than fucking Conrad Red Pill Alpha Male podcast Clarke? The reason it doesn't work is because it doesn't ring true. And they go out of their way to take away any sympathetic element. They say, oh, his mum isn't dead. Oh, she's actually living in a villa because he's a multi-millionaire, even though we didn't see that. And he's a tax dodger and he's blah, 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 and he's blah, 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 and he's blah. I get it. Okay, I hated him because he betrayed Ruby. I hated him on a character level. You don't need to put all these fucking labels on him to say, and this is why we should hate him. He's a tax dodger. It's so weird and so unself-aware. And I think the bit that got me the most is at the very end where Shirley Bean says, well, at least the tide's turning. Hashtag I stand with unit is trending. Who the fuck cares what hashtags? That's okay. So not only is it a fictional hashtag that no one cares about in the show because you can't relate to hashtag, there's a reason social media stuff, unless it's done really well, isn't prominent on TV. It's because we can't connect with it. In real life, these hashtags are fucking meaningless. A lot of people don't realize that this is how Twitter works. The things it shows that are trending are based on you. So obviously, if you work at Unit, hashtag I stand with Unit is going to be trending. Unless you're saying worldwide, it's trending. No, these trending bubbles are all isolated. They're all self-imposed. They're all personalized to you. Do you not realize that caring about what's trending, paying attention to hashtags and all of that and viewing that as an actual reflection of reality, that's how people get sucked into these echo chambers in the first place. It is such a poor critique and criticism and dialogue about the situation because it comes from a place of someone who doesn't understand how any of it works. This is an episode about social media and radicalization written from the perspective of someone who isn't on social media, doesn't understand social media, and doesn't understand radicalization. So what's the point? What can I get from this episode? The answer is nothing. The answer is I can get a very one-dimensional villain who has no redeemable traits, nothing compelling about him whatsoever. Murderous, psychopath, asshole, coward, betrayer who gets bitten on the arm and then Mrs. Flood sets him free. What a story, Mark. Hello all, this is Editing Me here. I'm coming in just right here to give a bit more context, a bit of clarification to my points. I was talking to a few people on the Discord server and we were discussing the episode because it does seem that I am again in the minority and most people really like this episode. A lot of people really enjoy this episode, and I really don't. Not in a way where it's like, I actively hate it, I'm going rage mode. I just think it's not good. I just think it's bad. And to really explain why, I think the simple answer is that none of it rings true. It only really works if you know the outside context of stuff like Andrew Tate, of all of that. It's really riffing on that, it's really playing on that, and it only works if you understand or know of that context. Say you're 9 and you watch this episode, you can have no fucking idea what's going on. But the reason why that bothers me is because if you know a lot about that situation, paid attention to it, if you've researched it, which I have, you know, out of curiosity, you'd understand that none of the things in this episode really make sense. The world building is the clear big problem here, because Conrad is a grifter, that's the whole point. But what is he grifting? What is his audience? How is his audience so big? Why are they there? With Andrew Tate, you can pretty clearly timeline out not only his rise to popularity, but also his fall into bands, all of those who were left over, where all of his audience scattered from, where they all came from. With Conrad, he somehow has a massive audience for this alien podcast for some fucking reason. Why is it so massive? I don't know. And his point is that he doesn't believe in aliens and that it's not real. But obviously he does believe in aliens because he's seen the Doctor and he knows all that stuff. So he's lying, proving that he's a grifter. But why would he say that instead of saying the aliens are real? Because both were a conspiracy. Or are they? I don't know how this Doctor Who world works. Do some people not want to believe in aliens? So they just want to say, no, aliens are not real. Why? Why would they want to do that? Why would so many people want to think that? There's so many questions. None of it makes sense if you think about it for basically 1 second. I understand that for a lot of people, he's like Andrew Tate, so they don't like him, so they've got no qualms with the morals of the episode. I also don't like Andrew Tate, spoiler alert. I think he's basically the devil incarnate. He's kind of that, how do I say it? The typical embodiment of the devil. I mean, he literally owns a casino. He's also a criminal and a sexual criminal and probably a paedophile. He's basically as bad as you can get. And so I definitely understand people being like, oh, Doctor Who's going after Andrew Tate. Woohoo, woohoo. But for me, it has to go further than that. It has to actually make sense in the story. It has to make sense in the world. This episode, I think, would serve well as an origin story to Conrad. I'm sure that's what it was meant to do. It's meant to establish him in the minds of the audience and in the world and in the worlds of the characters. But what do we know about him? What do we know about his journey from being a starstruck kid who saw something magical happen in front of him to a crazed psychopath who's just absolutely unapologetically, irredeemably evil in every possible way? What happened in between? I guess he was just starved for attention. Is that it? Is that all it takes? Anyway, just putting that in to add more to my thoughts on the episode. It just doesn't have any thought put into it. It's just such a simplistic view of the world. And it's such a shame because that opening scene sets up something really interesting. Now, Conrad was always going to be a villain, and from that first scene, you could see how he's always going to be a villain. But instead of making him, I don't know, desperate to see the TARDIS, desperate to pull the stars down to him, desperate for any semblance of love or affection or attention or any kind of motivation that any person can get behind or connect with, there's nothing. He's just evil. Okay? I suppose. I don't really like Kate Stewart in this episode. I don't really like Unit in this episode. They're, again, really one-dimensional. Ruby is the clear standout here, and I think she is good basically throughout, even in the bad segments of the episode. I think she's very good, and you can see her emotion, because what I think they don't realize is that we as the audience, we don't give a fuck about this nebulous wider world in quotation marks, because we all know that it's going to be reset by the end and it just doesn't matter. What we care about is the personal journey of Ruby, and I do care about that, and I did care about it in this episode, and so I think all of those moments land, and I think losing track on that is the worst thing that happened to this story. I thought this was going to be a mid-series finale. I thought the stakes were going to be high. I thought there was going to be a real personal conflict, something really unique. Instead, it just becomes a poorly edited and poorly thought out sequence of events that don't really hold up under much scrutiny. Just very surface level. And there's not even fun sci-fi hijinks to cover it up. I will say I really liked Ncuti Gatwa's performance, even though he's saying a bunch of stuff that I don't think the Doctor would really say, even to Davros, let alone this fucking human guy. I still really enjoyed his personality. I mean, I think it would have been so interesting if after seeing the human perspective of it, seeing Kate being vindictive, seeing all of the human characters either being like, oh, I like this guy, oh, I hate this guy, to have the Doctor come in and see it from an outside point of view, I think that would have been really effective. I think instead of him saying, I hate you, I'm sorry for you, that works so much more. more. He says, oh, you die at 40 or whatever alone in the cell. To the doctor, what's the difference between dying at 40 and dying at 80? There's no fucking difference. To him, it doesn't matter. Human lives are gone in an instant anyway. All of them die alone. So again, it just doesn't ring true. It doesn't work very well. It's just not a good episode. And it's the first episode of this era which I would consider not good. What a Debbie Downer. What a rant, folks. What did you guys think of the episode? It's a bit odd because I haven't checked my poll yet. So maybe I'm going to check it and everyone thinks this is the best episode of all time. I kind of doubt it though, because it just, even taking aside writing decisions and all of that, it just isn't very well made and well put together and edited. And a lot of the shots of the monster don't really look that good and blah blah blah. When you reveal that your monsters are people in suits, when you go back to trying to believe that they're monsters, I'm sorry, the Shriek looked like a guy in a suit. That's what it looked like. But who knows, maybe everyone liked this episode. It's going to be weird because maybe everyone would disagree with me and everyone will hate on me in the comments below, but this is just how I felt coming out of the episode. It didn't actually burrow in to the problems and the key issues and the debate that's going on, and it just kind of set up and said, no, you're wrong, which I mean might have been cathartic to the writing and the production team, but it makes for really boring drama. If you compare this to Dot and Bubble, which is an even more black and white dilemma, is racism bad? Dot and Bubble highlights that perfectly, and it is such a complex story for rather a simple debate, realistically, because that's the difference between an intelligent story and an unintelligent rush job, should I say. It's a shame. My overall review of this episode would be that the first 15 to 20 minutes are pretty damn great. Ruby's arc is good. As always, I find her character incredibly sympathetic, and I always want to see more of her. The rest of the episode, from the Conrad reveal, is nonsense and not very well made nonsense, and it's just a very odd episode. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. But what did you guys think? I am sure the community reaction for this episode will be something. So don't forget to leave your comments below. Don't forget to leave a like, and do not forget to subscribe. I'm going to be uploading another video again tomorrow and another 2 throughout the week. And also, guys, if you're a channel member or on the Patreon, look out for the full raw reactions and the edited down highlights. Trust me, you do not want to miss these ones. And so a special thanks to all of the channel members and everyone on the Patreon. Tom, Cardboard Oracle, Silver Safi, Bonnie, Zoom, Dr. Hoomst, Jack D. Murray, Vorscom, The Instinct, Kai Keller, Renegade Time Lord 97, Manny, Eric, Ren, Poop Criminal, Diego, Theta, Dark Tranquil, Chicky, No More Flippin', Sick Dr. Fan 84, Comfy Glitch X, Harry, Sanyu, Christian Rothfuss, Unreal Dinnerbone, Aidan Davies, Reef Edwards, Space, Amber Knight, KCKC, Snurly, Connor Bell, Ertle the Turtle, Andrew Locke, Bill Fleming, Hush, Wasabi, Jessica, Kai M, Kylo Wade, Mel, Owen, Toby-Wan Kenobi, Sophie in the Sky, Goldfish, Johnny, Anthony, Kustretch, Just Him, and Teddy Bite. And with all that said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.